Are there any questions, comments, anything at all? Yes, sir. Yes, there are IFRS questions, but one of the changes that they're doing now is they decided that we're going to try to just talk about the similarities and differences between IFRS. So they're trying to get, because there's a lot of convergence going on, as you know, things like inventory, right? I think in the end of the year it goes to, instead of lower of cost or market, lower of cost or NRV, which is the same as IFRS. So they're making changes to kind of, and they've been trying to do this for years, but one of the things that they're trying to step back a little bit and do the differences. So one of the things I do in class is I'll talk about, here's GAAP, because 95% is GAAP. Then, now that we understand inventory, let's look at how it differs under IFRS. So we'll show you mainly GAAP, US GAAP, because that's what we're using, your applicable financial reporting framework, and then we'll also show you how it differs under IFRS. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So those DRS programs,
yes.
They are new?
Yes.
It means that they haven't been tested by the people who take the exam, so does that mean it won't be counted?
That's a good question. The question is for the DRS, these are new questions. Are they going to count? We asked the CPA, they would not tell us. But what I believe what's going to probably happen starting in July of this year is, I would say of the, you have 7 questions still. I bet the last one will be a DRS. Maybe it's a pre-tested question because one of the questions is pre-tested. So my guess is probably the first window or two will probably be more of a pre-tested question, just to kind of show you what it looks like and also give you a taste of it. Also currently, if you go to AICPA.org, you go to CPA exam, they have 3 sample DRS questions. One of them is in tax, one of them is in financial accounting, one of them is in auditing, dealing with ratios. So you can kind of see and play with the exhibits. That's a great way to practice so you can see what it looks like. Is it a pre-tested question starting in July? They won't tell us. If we hear more, we'll let you know. There's a chance that it could be, in which case they're just trying to get you to, and that's why they give us the information, because they don't want you to go to the exam and everybody bombs. They still want, 48% to pass. We want 88% of our people to pass, but they want at least 40, let's just say 50% pass. So they don't want to just blow you away. That's why they're giving samples. That's why they're feeding us information, because they know that we're controlling 80, 90% of the market of the people taking the exam. Therefore, they want to make sure you go in as prepared as possible. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What are the pre-test questions? I don't understand. What are these pre-test?
Pre-test questions mean they don't count in your score. So let's say I give you 90 questions on the exam, 16% will not count. So 16% of 90 is 9 to 6 is 54, 9 to 5 is about 14 points. So 15 questions of your 90 won't count. You don't know which they are, but it's probably going to be on a new topic. It could be a new type of question. It could be a more difficult question. It could be on a new tax law. And the reason they do this is they pre-test them because there's 2 categories of questions. There's difficult and moderate. They need to know how people perform to know which category to put it in. So for example, the first 30 are moderate. If you do well, the next 30 get more difficult. If you do well, they stay difficult. You could have moderate, difficult, difficult, moderate, moderate, difficult, moderate, difficult, moderate. See what I'm saying? So they have to know which category. That's why they pre-test them. With a TBS, they pre-test it to see how people perform. Maybe it's too hard. Maybe it's too easy. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just on the format, do you have to be connected to the internet to watch the lectures? I take the train. I like to study.
Yes, that's a great question. The question is, hey, do I have to be online? No, we have, as far as the course, if you're online, great. But we also have an offline version, which is a flash drive. So you basically have your little flash drive, you plug it into your computer, hopefully it has a flash drive hole, and you can then watch it offline. I want to go hiking up to, I don't know, Mount Everest. There's no internet. Well, don't worry, you can bring me along. So yes, we do have an offline version, not a problem. Yes, yes, sir.
For the BEC simulations that are coming up, what do you expect them to be kind of, because it's kind of broad?
Yeah, BEC is broad. The question is what kind of simulations. One of the things I'm doing is I'm looking back at the last 30 years of exams, and I'm looking at the old, what we used to call ARE, accounting and reporting. And on that old exam is where cost managerial was. And there were actual problems from there that I took years ago. Joint product costing, absorption costing, variance analysis, budgeting. those kind of questions, I could easily see those moving over. Currently we have a CSO, Content Specification Outline. They're giving us something different called a blueprint. And the blueprint has it broken down between those 4 categories of remembering and understanding, application, analysis, and evaluation. Evaluation only applies to audit. So for the others, those 3 still exist, and that's where you'll probably see more of the TBS. And we'll come out with more information on that before, but that's kind of where I would see. So I would see it in the cost accounting, managerial accounting, budgeting, operations management, things like we were talking about the cash conversion cycle calculations, things like that. Payback period and IRR, internal rate of return. That existed years ago, still exists on the exam. Other questions? Yes, sir.
If I'm currently working full-time, what is like the best study plan?
So I'm working full-time, how should I get through the exam? The best way is you set up a study schedule, whether it's 3, 6, 9, or 12 months. And then you're going to say, okay, and here's how to think about it. Figure every hour of lecture, you need at least 2 hours of study time. So let's say, for example, my audit course is 25 hours. You need another 50 hours of studying. So you're going to say, I want to take audit in 2 months. So I need to stick 50 hours between today or 75 hours between today and 2 months from today. So what do I need? I need 25 hours a month. I need about 8 hours a week. So how am I going to get that? I'm going to come home every night and put an hour in. I'm going to take 1 day a weekend and go to the library for 6 hours, and I'm going to take half a day on Sunday. You have to work it around your life. Here's the difference. When I took the exam, you had to sit for all 4 parts at the same time. You had to pass at least 2 parts, and the parts you didn't pass, you had to get at least a 50% on, or you kept nothing. So if you got a 99, 99, 99, 49, anyway, you kept nothing. Now you can study for a part and take a part. So that makes it easier for someone like you to say, I don't have to study all 4, I can study 1 part. I'm just going to jump in the next 2 months and nail it out. So you have to set up a reasonable study schedule, and that's why we give you kind of the recommended hours. You'll see right here, it says lecture time, 25 hours of audit, study time, figure about another 50 to 75. So let's say for audit we say 100 hours. So if I'm going to set up my exam date in 2 months, that's 100 hours in the next 2 months. So that's probably the best way to set it up. And I remember I used to go to the library at night and on the weekends and just lock myself up and study. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I graduated in December 2016, and I want to start taking my exam beginning of 2017. Let's say I sit for 2 of the tests.
Yes.
Somewhere in February.
Yes, great question. And that's a slide actually I think we should add back that talks about what parts should you sit for. And here's what I suggest. If you're sitting this year, nail it out. If you're sitting at the end of the year, beginning of next year, like you said, what would I start with first? Well, to me, the hierarchy is BEC first. Why? Because it's going to increase by an hour, and it's going to include problems where it currently doesn't. Second one is regulation. Because it's currently 3 hours, it's going to go up to 4. Why not take a shorter exam? The next one would be audit. Why? Because audit will include a new thing called evaluation, which we've never seen before. And then the one with the least amount of changes is FAR, because it's currently 4, it's going to be 4. It's currently multiple choice and problems, it's going to be multiple choice and problems. It'll have a few more problems, it'll be a little longer, but the only changes are the new FASBs, which we're going to teach you anyway. So that would be my hierarchy. BEC, Reg, Audit, FAR. BEC, Reg, Audit, FAR. Now what if you pass 1 part in quarter 1 and the exam changes? You get credit. You keep it for 18 months, no change. So it's a rolling 18 months. I pass, 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 don't pass. 18 months goes by, you just lose the first part. So if you can pass BEC as a 3-hour exam in January, you're done with it forever. If I can pass Reg as a 3-hour exam in January, February, I'm done. If I don't pass it, then it just goes to 4. And if you don't sit for the exam until the end of next year, because that's fine. It's 16 hours, no big deal, we'll get you through it. It was 19 and a half when I took it. So the point is, so if you have that option to get through it before the end of February of 17, BEC and Reg is what I would suggest.
Can you do 3 in 2 months?
You could do 4 in 3 months. Just have no life, no friends, nothing going on. You're correct. I mean, here's the point. That's where this flyer comes in. You're going to need, let's just say 400 hours. You could put, it's like a full-time job. right? You work 40 hours a week. I could study 40 hours a week. So it's up to you. It's going to be 10 weeks of 40 hours a week, and you're done. 10 weeks is 2.5 months. So you could easily do it. It's a lot. It's a full-time job. But you can't work full-time like him and study 40 hours a week. You'll go bald like me. Yeah. Other questions? Yes?
Yeah, well, the graduation for me personally is May 17th.
Of this year, 16.
Of 2017.
Of 2017. So she graduates in May 2017.
But
Yes.
I'll be done with all my classes by December this fall.
Okay. So in order to qualify to sit, you need a degree in hand. Will you have a degree?
I'm not gonna have.
Okay, then you cannot sit. You have to have in California a degree in hand with 24 units in accounting, 24 in business. If you had that, you could sit earlier. If you're not going to have that till May of 17, you cannot sit until May of 17.
Are you in the BDAM program?
No.
Okay, that was the only thing. If you're in that program, then you can get they'll write something for you and you can sit because you're getting your bachelor's degree and your master's degree together.
Oh, so if you're getting a master's and bachelor's together, then they'll write a letter saying you qualify to sit, and that would be great. If that's not you, then just marry wealthy. That's my suggestion.
That's what I'll do.
Yeah, I'm working on my MRS. Yes.
Just out of curiosity, say it's 2018 or already all this has happened at 16 hours, then what do you recommend this period for and the average person?
Okay, good question. The question is, let's say the transition's over, it's 2017 and a half or 2018 or what. Well, what I would tell normally, people say, what part should I do first? And there's two ways to look at it. One way is, I just graduated college yesterday. I had a really good audit teacher. Audit's fresh in my head. Let me do it first. Here's the bottom line. Any part you do, there's stuff in there you've never seen. There's stuff in there that I've never met an intermediate accounting teacher who finished the whole book. They always skip the last few chapters and go, don't worry about it. Guess what? It's still on the exam. But don't worry about it, because I'll teach it to you. So realize that's fine. We'll teach it to you. So my advice is, if you just had a great teacher, let me take that. I haven't had a great teacher. It's been too long. I don't remember it. Then which ones would I take first? Which one takes the most preparation time? FAR. Next, reg. Next, audit. Then BEC. So as far as which one takes the most preparation time, FAR has the most material. Plus you'll see up here it's the thickest book. The next thickest is reg. The next thickest is audit. The thinnest is BEC. So that would be my suggestion. And the reason I want you to start with the longest one first is I don't want those 18 months to go by too quickly and you lose the first part. Because some people say, let me start with BEC, let me do this one, and then they hit FAR at the end and they struggle and it takes more time than they have because they're working full time and they did something silly like got married, fell in love, had a kid, bought a house, have a mortgage, life gets in the way. So all of a sudden it takes longer and they lose the first part and they got to study BEC again. So I'd rather get FAR out of the way because your clock doesn't start till you pass it. And then your 18 months starts, and now the others usually take less preparation time. And you'll see that here on this flyer too about how much preparation time. You'll notice FAR takes longer than reg, then audit, then BEC. So that's the order I would go in unless you just got out of an excellent audit class, it's fresh, and you're going to love our audit lectures as well. Let me nail that out of the way. But if, I know how most of us get through school. We go, this semester's going to be different. I'm not going to fall behind. I'm going to study right away. And then you don't. And then it's the night before and you memorize. And you take the exam and you blow it out of your brain and you don't remember it anyway. We're going to teach it to you again. So there's stuff you don't remember. You've seen it but don't remember. We'll teach it. There's stuff you've never seen. We'll still teach it. Other questions? Yes? Or let me, yes.
Can I only buy 2 parts of the material?
Can you buy only 2 parts? You can, but it's more expensive because if you buy all 4, it's a huge discount. I don't remember what %. But it's a huge discount. So you could buy just 1 part if you want, but it's less expensive. And if you buy all 4, you end up with about 18 to 24 months of access. Plus, here's one of the cool things. As you take our course, you're watching the lecture. Let's say there's a new tax law. Guess what? I go and I film it, we load it. When you go to your online course, we'll tell you there's a new video, watch that one. And guess what? The materials that are online are updated immediately. In your student account, we put in that updated material as well. So your online lecture is always current and up to date. The online books are current and up to date. If I gave you the books today and something changed, your books are up to date except that one section which you have online. You can print or just watch it online. So the materials are always up to date. So it's a lot less expensive to buy 4, and you have up to 24 months to watch it and view it and take it anyway. Yes?
Well, mine is a two-part question. Like the first one, so the first order that you said, the BEC first, the reg second. Which one is that based off?
Okay, so the question is, if I'm going to sit before quarter 2 17, which should I start with? My suggestion is BEC first because it's going to have the most change, because currently it has no problems. In the future it will, plus it goes up by an hour. The next one is reg because it will go up by an hour. The next one is audit because it's the same amount of time, but it includes evaluation, which it currently doesn't have. And the one with the least amount of change, but takes the longest to prepare for, is FAR.
Okay, and my second question is, so which two methods should I go for, like if I'm working?
Which what method?
Like the,
How many months?
no, like should I go by with the longest preparation time or like the order wise?
If you were going to sit now?
Yeah.
So the question is, so you're going to sit now, let's say, starting in a month.
Yeah.
I would still probably nail out the ones I know are changing more. I would probably want to nail out BEC and reg first to get those done, because you just save 2 hours of exam time, no matter what. And then between FAR and audit, totally up to you. But I would still probably nail out BEC and reg, just because I want to be done with them. Now, then you got to be motivated to get the rest done within 18 months, because I don't want to lose those.
Okay, so they're the ones that include the document review selection?
No, BEC will not have a DRS until 2017 when they change it, but the other 3 will include DRS starting in July.
For which section?
Audit, FAR, and reg will have a DRS in July. BEC does not have problems. It will not have a DRS until April of 17.
Is it just one problem out of 7?
Is it one problem out of 7? We don't know. My guess is those might be the 30-minute problems that we're talking about. So you probably couldn't, I would think at some point we'll have at least 2, but you don't know, and one could be a pretest. Right? So at some point, I think regular you'll see 2 of them, is my guess, because one could be pre-tested and one could be graded. But that's an hour of problems, and you've only got 4 hours, so they can't give you too many. You're going to run out of time. Right? I mean, you still have 4 hours to do 70 questions and 8 or 9 problems. Yes?
And I read it too, reading about the CPA exam, and a lot of people sometimes feel that when they go to college, like you said earlier, that our teachers don't always teach us everything we need to know for it. And I was going to ask you, I don't know, like, it made a difference back then, what do you think we should pay attention to in college right now to help us? But I know, like, you're going to cover everything else that they don't teach us.
The question is, so what should I concentrate on in college in order to help me for the exam? I wouldn't worry about it. At this point, your goal is to get good GPA, meet the right people, get a good job, and some of your teachers are great and you learn a lot, and some of your teachers have tenure and don't care anymore, and they're teaching old stuff that changed, but they didn't want to learn it. I found that, trust me. I've gone and I do guest lectures. I don't want to, anyway, it's on film, but I've gone to classes where I'll go, okay, which reports are you covering? Oh, we're doing these audit reports. I'm like, okay, let me teach those, even though they changed 6 months ago and they're not in the exam anymore. But I don't want to make the teacher look bad, so I teach that. And then in reality, that's not what you're going to see at the exam. So, we're exam experts. That's what we do. There's a lag. When a rule changes, it won't hit the exam for 6 months. So you don't have to know what's current today, but you need to know what's current today for your exam. But like there's tax laws, a 179 tax deduction, what is the amount? Well, it changes. So what amount do I need to know? That's why your books are current. And if it changes, boom, we flip that switch and your online course will change and will alert you that there's a new video, that this video has changed since you watched it. So that's why in school, pick good teachers and try to learn a lot. That's great. But whatever you didn't learn, that's where we come in. That's why we really suggest you take a review course, because we'll summarize, we'll simplify, and we focus you in. We cut out the fat. For example, when you're studying back to leases in college, they talk about the lessor and the lessee. Well, in college, lessor is more difficult. You got a sales type lease, direct financing lease, and leverage lease, and all. So the teachers like to cover that more and test you on that more because it's harder. But on the exam, it's more real world. Chances are you're not auditing a leasing company. You're auditing a client that has a leased asset, which means he's a lessee, not a lessor. So in school, you spend time on lessor. On the exam, they spend time on lessee. Let me make sure you understand lessee. I'll cover lessor because you need some questions, but most of it will be lessee. That's where it's real world versus exam world. So, and that's why in school they do this, on the exam, in the real world they do the other. So that's why it's important that we try to show it that way. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I have a bachelor degree in China. So
Yes.
I'm taking the master here. Like, I almost finished my class. Do you suggest us, take their exam before we graduate, after we take most of the class?
Yeah, the question is, I have a degree from overseas and I'm getting a master's here. Master's in tax or accounting?
Tax.
Okay, not that it matters, but great, congratulations. So, first of all, you can send your transcripts in to the foreign evaluation company. They will evaluate it and tell you if you qualify, which you should. Because obviously they evaluated it to let you into master's, into the master's program. So chances are you're qualified to sit now. So what would I do? I would try to look at my schedule. How much time do I have? Do I have time to start studying one part? Or right when I graduate, maybe I'll take it. But you could start studying now because you're in the study mode anyway. And maybe you want to start with tax because it's stuff you're already studying, and it's current. And then you can nail regulation and get it out of the way early before it goes up by an hour. So it all depends on how much time you have. And you don't want your grades to suffer, but even though you're a full-time student, or I don't know if you're a full-time student or a part-time student, but everyone thinks I'll have more time later. You never have more time later, all right? You get busy at work, you get busy with life, and so on. And here's the deal in life. The firms will not promote you to manager until you've passed. And everyone goes, oh, that's 5 years. It goes by quickly. And there was a time during the recession, I was in New York and Manhattan, and the recession hit and they had to fire people. First people they fired were all those up for manager that hadn't passed. They go, we have good news and bad news. The good news is you have time to study. The bad news is you're fired. Because they had to clear out, and they said, why not get rid of the people that haven't passed? Because they need 400 hours to study. Let's get people in here. We can charge more money too. You're a CPA, higher billing rate, and so on. So for yourself, you want to get through it as early as possible. So I would, if you have the time, start studying before. That would be great. And when you send in your transcripts, there's an evaluation company you send it to. They look at it. They'll send it to the state board or the NASBA to make sure that you're pre-approved.
So it's better I take the exam 1 or 2 before I graduate, or
The question is, should I take 1 or 2 before I graduate? If you have the time and can fit it in your schedule, sure. Just make sure you watch the 18-month window. You don't want to take one and pass it and then all of a sudden get busy and go, oh my gosh, the time's going to expire. But again, you're already studying tax. Why not jump into regulation? And plus, the stuff you study will help you get a better grade in class. Now, you might be doing projects, case studies, and so on, but at least you're going to still have to memorize some of this stuff for remembering and understanding and application at the exam. Yes, question?
So say you pass all 4, how long do you have to get the requirement?
So the question is, I passed all 4, how long do I have? There used to be a 5-year requirement. I don't think they have it anymore, which means your grades are good forever. I had a student the other way that had gotten his experience but didn't pass the exam, and he had worked at a company called Coopers and Lybrand, which was one of the big 8 way back when. That's the C in PricewaterhouseCoopers. And he had been there in 1968. And he said, does my experience count? And I'm like, let's call the state board. We called the state board and they said yes. I'm like, okay. So he took the course, passed the exam. And I don't want him doing my taxes, right? He's going to pull out an abacus and try to figure it out. But the point is, so I believe it doesn't. Now, when you take it overseas, it does. Like if you take it in Japan, I believe you've got 3 years to get your experience. That's why I tell the Japanese kids it might be better to fly to America to take it, because then you fall under the rules here, which means it doesn't expire. So it all depends. But generally, I believe it doesn't take, it used to have 5 years. I believe they're good forever. And that means, how long do I have to get my 1 year of experience? Incidentally, that 1 year of experience needs to be under the supervision of a licensed active CPA. But anything you do before, during, or after counts. So if you do an internship, it counts. If you're working part-time and one of the guys that you're supervised by is a CPA, it counts. So that's great news. And it's only 1 year. When I started, it was 2 years. We didn't need the 150, we just needed 120, but we needed 2 years of work. What they decided to do is let's make 1 less year of work, but 1 more year of college in a sense.
What happens if the person I have worked for loses their license? While I was working for them, they were active. If they lose the license afterwards?
So the question is, what if the person I used to work for, they were active when I worked for them, but now they're in jail? Yeah, how do I get the proof? I would say between you and the state board. So I would say, basically, there's a Form E of experience you get filled out and they sign it. So the guy should be able to sign it and maybe put his license number that he had back then as active. I would assume that the main requirement is that he was active at the time that he supervised you, not later. He could be a retired partner now, but they can still look at his thing and see when he was active and not. So that should be fine. I've had students where they went back to their employer and they wouldn't sign it. And then they're like, but I did my work, and they still wouldn't sign it. So, and that happens at some of the big firms too. So I tell people, you're going to jump companies. I mean, you start at one big four, you go to another big four, you end up at a mid-size, you go to government. Before you give notice, you go in and say, hey, you know what, can I have you guys fill out the part of the Form E just so I can keep track of it? That's for you. So I suggest, every 3 months, have it filled out and signed, Because once you give notice, they're like, they may not be nice to you. Even the big firms this has happened to. So protect yourself and get it signed every so often. And you're going to have, if you have 4 employers, you're going to have 4 of them filled out. So before you give notice to one of them, have them fill out the form and sign the form. Usually they know you're getting ready to quit, but you say, no, I just want to get it signed because the manager I work for today may not be here tomorrow. And that's one of the things I remember when I was unassigned at Deloitte, I used to have to go to the file room and look for files to look for your signature. That's an important point. When you do work paper stuff, make sure your initials are on those papers because that's where you get credit for doing the work. So you make sure you sign everything you're working on because that's where you get the credit. So these days we have, everything's computerized and you've got a schedule and you've got records of who you, keep those records. Copy them, keep them, because that's your evidence that you did your 2 years of experience or 1 year of experience. That's for you. Yes?
There is a standard form for that?
Yeah, there's a standard form. I think it's on the State Board of Accountancy's website because every state's different. And it used to be called a Form E of experience. And there's one for attestation and non-attestation, which means you're doing audits. The other thing too I always suggest is they usually say that you need 500 hours of audit. I always suggest start in the audit department for a few months to get the hours and then shift to tax. Something like that. Because when you start, they always promise you they'll get the audit experience, but the longer you're there, the more valuable you become, and it's hard for them to loan you to the audit department. When they're billing you in tax at $250 an hour, they don't want to demote you to audit for $150 an hour because we're losing money. So you want to make sure, take care of yourself, make sure you get that experience. It's for you to get your CPA.
Is this just for audit and tax? Because I work in the GL department and I work under a CPA. Those hours count?
The hours will count. You need, it used to be 500. It used to be, basically 500 hours of audit under this, but 2 years or 1 year of work. So 2,080 hours of work. So 2,080 hours that would count, but not towards audit. So and the audit you only need is if you think you're going to sign off on audits. If you may want to start your own practice and just do tax. You may never do an audit. You may just do a compilation. But if you're going to do any kind of attestation, the attest function is the act of giving an opinion or a conclusion, then you need to have 500 hours of audit experience, which with overtime is like 12 weeks or 6 weeks. But make sure you get some of that. Yes?
So if I graduate with less than 150 units, is there a way I can complete the units?
I'm sorry, if you graduate when?
With less than 150 units, is there a way I can complete the units aside from the master's?
Yes, if I graduate less than 150 units, is there a way that I can make up the units? Yes, you can do any class as long as it's an accredited class, which means it could be an online class that you take, through the internet, and you take an exam on the internet. It could be pass-fail. as long as you get the credits and it shows up on a transcript and it's an accredited school. It can't be a fly-by-night school. Hey, get your master's, 3 hours and pay $1,000. No, it's got to be accredited. So make sure it's accredited, but you could go to a junior college and take an online class, or you could go to a junior college and take a tax class. You can't take the same class more than once unless it's for undergrad and grad, but but there's plenty of classes. So when you find the 20 and the 10 categories, if you're missing something, let's say the state board says you're short by 3 units, then you don't have to go get a master's, you don't have to go to a 4-year college, you can go to a JC, but as long as it's accredited.
Can I complete it with an internship?
An internship will count up to 4 units, or I think it's up to 4 units under, I think it was the accounting category. So yes, internships can count. You look at the specifics. I don't know if it's a paid internship. I think it still counts, but I don't remember. Yeah, but if it's not unpaid, for sure it counted.
And they have, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They have to give me sign.
Yeah, what I would do again is call the state board and talk to them and ask them. And first I'd go on the website, State Board of California, State Board of Accountancy, or whatever state you're in, and then I would look at the form for certification of CPA, print it, look it over and read it, and it'll say all that about auditing and accounting and all the hours. Look at that and then call them with questions, because they're the ones that are the experts in that. They're the ones that sign off on it. Yes?
And I didn't see PwC on the list of.
I'm sorry, you didn't see what?
PwC on the list of the firms that you work with. Does it mean it's just you don't have a direct bill?
Right. The question is, currently, as of this filming, we don't have a contract with PwC. Hopefully, one day we will. Currently, we do not. Do we have anything where I think what we do is we give you a really, really, really good price. So if you call us and go, hey, I got an offer letter from PwC, they're only going to pay for that other course, but I'd really like to take yours, then we go, okay, we'll give it to you for half price because we really want you to take our course. So, we'll work something with you, but even half price, you still go, well, I don't want to spend $1,000 out of pocket when I'm getting it free. Totally up to you. But we do have plenty of PwC people to take us. Also, about 30% of our current students are past students of other courses that didn't work for them. And they get a huge discount because they've already, so we'll work with you. If I can't get you in, I'm sorry and good luck. I'll miss you. If there's a way to get you in, we'll work with you. But, at some point we're hoping to get a deal with them. We don't have one as of now. Yes?
I have an unsolicited endorsement.
Unsolicited endorsement, I love that. Yes, ma'am.
So when I came in, I texted my brother-in-law.
Yeah, she texted her brother-in-law.
Because I knew he took this great course that someone had recommended to him. And I said, what was the name of that? And he said, Roger Phillips. It worked for me and Peter, and it was not tortuously boring.
See?
And I said, cool, he's here at SDSU talking right now. And he said, oh, nice, I would totally thank him.
Wow, well, let's take a picture afterwards. We'll send it to him. So that was unsolicited. Thank you very much. And I love it wasn't torturous and boring. It was still miserable, but it wasn't. No, I'm just kidding. Root canal is still a root canal, but I'll play really good music. So anyway, we'll tell them I say hello and we'll send them a picture. So again, see, I don't even thank you. I appreciate that. So, like I said, my students, they love the course. They appreciate it. They get through the exam. They move on with their career. They make lots of money and buy happiness, and so it's a happy ending. Yes, ma'am.
This is the last question. So between applying and sending in transcripts, how much time do you have? Is it just a few days?
Well, part of the application process is filling out the application, sending in a transcript. Then once they approve it, you have 90 days to pay the fee, right? So I think it's 90 days to pay for what parts you want to sit for. Basically, when you apply and send in your transcripts and they approve it, you have an ATT, which is an authorization to test. That authorization is good for 90 days, which means now I have 90 days to pay my $200, $400, $600, $800. I pay that, then I get a notice to schedule. Clock starts running. It's good for 9 months. So you have 90 days to pay and then 9 months to sit. Yes?
Is it, so to pay to sit, is it $50 per section?
No, it's $50. It's $50 the first time you send in an application, and then you can pay for whatever parts. Then, if you don't pay for the parts and your 90 days expires, then it's $25 to reapply plus the $200 per part. And I'm just rounding up. It's really like $179 and $190.
Yeah, $193.
Yeah.
And then the
What-
3-hour exams, 173.
So 173, 193, and eventually they'll all be, you know, 20 bucks more or whatever. So I'm just going to round up and say 200 bucks a part, figure 800 bucks, give or take a little. And you don't have to pay all 8, but you want to pay for the parts you're going to sit for. But and here's the deal, you can have more than one notice to schedule simultaneously. So I have one notice to schedule for 2 parts, and it's good for 9 months. And then 3 months in, I go, oh, let me get another one, but not for these parts, but for the other parts. And one of the things they're considering changing too, which is cool, currently if I sit in January for audit and I get my results, I can't sit again until the next window. They're considering in 17 or 18 letting you sit for the same part in the same window again. So I sit in January, I failed it, darn, I reapply a week later, get the notice, I could sit in February. So you can't do it yet, but maybe by next year you can.
But that way you might see exactly the same questions.
Well, you could see the questions, I could see the same questions. You could do that anyway, but there's so many questions. They don't give you guys could be taking the exact same exam at the same time and have completely different questions. It's random. All the questions are random. So you could take the same exam 20 times and not see any of the same questions. They may have 3,000 audit questions. You're only going to get 90.
But in the same window.
It doesn't matter. In the same window, they still use different questions. There's still a huge test bank. You could see the same question in window 1 and window 6. Or window 6, window 3 or 4. See what I'm saying? It's all randomized. But if you do statistically, you know, you'll probably have a higher chance of winning the lottery. So I mean, statistically, I mean, there's a lot. I'm joking because there's 1 in 235 million. Here you've probably got, let's say they have 2,000 multiple choice. You're only seeing 90 of those. Chances are you won't see the same one. It's not like the olden is. In the olden days, everybody got the exact same question with the exact same exam with the same questions. And we all sat in the room and we all took the exact same questions. That was it. And then they let you walk out with the test and they threw those questions away and made new ones. But they only had to make 90 questions twice a year. Now you've got thousands of people. You've got 90,000 people taking the exam a year, and of the 90,000 people, they mix up the questions, you know. So, and there's thousands of them for each part. So it's slim to none that you'll see it. There's a chance, but it's very slim. Yes. Anything else? Great questions. Yes.
Why do you recommend enrolling in the review course before you apply to sit for the exam?
The question is, why do you recommend enrolling in the review course before you apply for the exam? Because my kids need to eat. No. Why do I recommend? Because the point is, I'm getting ready to, you know, that's assuming you think you're qualified. I mean, I don't want you to apply, find out that you're 6 units short, and then I got to go spend 6 months doing that. So you might call us and go, hey, I blew it. Can I postpone it? And we could work with you. So my clock's not ticking. But I mean, the main thing is, you know, I would say make sure you qualify, make sure you have a degree in hand, and if you have an accounting degree, you're good. I mean, if you have an accounting degree from any accredited school, you have a degree and you got 24, there's no reason you're not gonna. So the main reason we say that is, you may as well start studying while they're doing the process. Why lose 6 weeks? You know, unless there's a question that I have a foreign degree and I don't know, and then maybe wait the 6 weeks to make sure you got approved. You should be, because you already got approved for your master's. So that's kind of the thought process. But if for some reason you were wrong, then let us know and maybe we can postpone, you know, stop the clock running on the course that you just bought. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Can you go over the new ethics requirement for 2017? I don't think it's the ethics exam, but like you actually need to have a course that says like ethics and accounting.
Yes, the question is, what about the new ethics requirement starting in 2017? And you'll see that. Do we have that in here or not? Anywhere? No? I thought we had it on one of these flyers. Anyway, what's happening with the ethics requirement is basically all the universities in the last year or 2 or 3 or 4 have been scrambling to get an ethics class. And so what that said is you need to have at least 1 ethics course, I think it's 3 units minimum, in order to count as your units. So in your 10 units of ethics, you need to have at least an ethics class. And they did this, and I think it came out years ago. Same thing for me. I need to be a CPA and stay active, I need 80 hours of education every 2 years, a minimum of 20 hours a year, and I have to have at least 8 hours or 2 hours of ethics or 4 hours of ethics and 6 hours of this. So I have to keep that as well too. Same thing starting in 17, you have to have an ethics class. So all the schools should now have an ethics class. If you don't have it, then you can take one online. But basically the requirement is that you have to have at least 3 units of an ethics class, and it should already be a requirement in the accounting programs, and they built it in, but I know in the last few years the schools were scrambling for that. But that's one of the requirements. And it's under the ethics where it says you don't have to have it yet until 17.
Okay, and that's for the license, correct?
Yes, that was part of the 10 units of your extra 30 that you need to get certified from 120 to 150. But again, if you don't have it and you graduated before it was required, you could go and take one online, or you could go through a JC or through something like that. Other questions? Wow, that was like 30 minutes, 40 minutes of questions. That was great. I like that. I'm glad I could answer them all. Whew, that was tough. Oh, thank you. Thank you.